Life Riders, welcome back to another vlog. Today we are going to talk about a comparison of the Insta360 ONE X2 to the GoPro Max that we reviewed last week. If you didn't see that video, you can go up there and check it out. But for today, sit back, relax, and enjoy the show. The differences between the Insta360 and the GoPro Max is that I have a microphone hooked up to my Insta360 here remotely, and I have a lapel mic inside my shirt to be able to pick up audio. So we will see how well that works. And this Friday, we have a video coming out where I use the Insta360 in 360 form on my helmet. Not that you can't do that with the GoPro Max, but look forward to that, checking that out this Friday. One of the next things that I think is the most different between the Insta360, actually most of this video I'm going to talk to you about is from a motovlogger perspective. So most of what I'll be telling you is my perspective in using both of the cameras. The other big thing that is different is how you mount the cameras. The GoPro Max has the basic GoPro mounts, and the Insta360 has a quarter 20 connection. The other differences between the cameras are in the operations and the things you can do with them. The form factor, of course, is different, and that is actually the biggest difference. And the biggest reason why I went back to the Insta360 ONE X2, even though I like the interface of the GoPro Max. And the biggest reason why I went back to the Insta360 ONE X2 is because of how skinny the camera is and the way it stitches the videos, the two video halves together. I liked how much closer I could get to my bike with it. I thought the stitch seemed to be a little bit more consistent consistent in where it was occurring. But most of the other things we will talk about here in the video.
So here's the way that I mount the camera on my bike. I'll show you a couple of the ways that I mount. This is if I'm mounting on my fairing, and I always do it this way rather than this way because I don't want to get bug strikes. As you can see on my fairing, we get lots of bug strikes here in Nebraska, and so I always mount mine in line with this. That's why my stitch line is a big concern for me. And I know they make lens protectors for these cameras, but I don't like to use the lens protectors because I think it warps the image a little bit. So the other ways I have mounted my cameras are on these ram mounts that I have shown with the pole, and then I can extend the pole up, and you've seen some of those kinds of shots before. So you probably can't see this very well, but you can see there with the ram mount mounted on a little GoPro mount. That's how I mount it on my front of my, well, the inside, the middle of my fairing.
So here I want to show you some examples, and here I have it mounted on my fairing on the opposite side of where I showed you, and you can see there the little stitch line on my fairing. You can also kind of see the stitch line on my shoulder and the mirror, and this was a darker day. When I go to mounting the camera here on the inside of my fairing, like I showed you, you can't really see the stitch until you look down at the fairing. Then you can kind of see where the stitch is, but it seems to be better in the daytime than a little when it's darker out. The only place where I could really tell the stitch was right there, and maybe a little bit when it looks back at my helmet, but not very often. I mean, you can really see how it just barely shows the windshield off a little bit. Now if I take comparison of that to the GoPro Max footage, you can see considerably there where the stitch line was when I put my hand up there to start to shut it off. You can also see it quite a bit on my head, and it seems to change. It goes in and out. Sometimes it's there, sometimes it kind of warps my face, and so that was kind of a little bit annoying to me. And you'll see here as we pan down onto the fairing, you can see how it makes a considerable change in the fairing, almost offset a little bit, and it looks weird. You can't see where the mount is. You can kind of see it a little bit occasionally in the sky, but anytime with the GoPro Max, if you're within a couple of feet of where that stitch line is, you will get some type of warping in the way, and you can see how that is set up. Now if we change and go to a closer view of the Insta360, here I have it mounted on my helmet, and you can see how it kind of warps my head just a little bit. And but I am within 6 inches of my face there. Now if you had to look at this all the time, that would be annoying. There you can see how it changed where that stitch line is. But once I close my helmet, it's almost not noticeable too terribly bad. And I'll show you here how I have that camera mounted.
So here's the way that I have the camera mounted on my helmet, and notice the stitch line is in line with my face rather than turning the camera this way. And I could try it that way to see how it works, but I have just always kind of turned it this way like I do on my bike.
So now we'll go in and talk about the interface of the camera itself. If you want to see how the interface is with the GoPro, go to last week's video and you can see that. But you can see here how you can move around on the footage. I don't know what value that would be in motovlogging, but it is kind of neat to be able to see what you're seeing. And you can't do that on the
Insta360. Here's how you change between doing a 360 and then using it as a GoPro type camera. You can switch between the two cameras, the front and the back, and be able to shoot just from one camera. And then here is where you would, the different ways you swipe within the software, go into the settings. You can set up different ways that you can use it, and you can also go into your settings and all your different stuff, that how you set up the camera. I won't go into the details of that, but this is basically how you swipe through on this particular camera. Not a lot different. Here's where you can go in and set up all the camera. It's a little different than the GoPro Max, and I think really I would like a square screen like the GoPro Max has, but other than that, this screen works pretty well. When it comes to changing the camera, it's as little of the different modes. It's as little as swiping. Come on. Swiping and going into them. So it's a little bit of a different type of swipe, but it still works kind of the same way as with the GoPro Max. So those are kind of your primary differences between the Insta360 ONE X2 and the GoPro Max. Your form factor, the addition of this little box that you can use for your external mic, the way that it mounts, and the interface on the camera itself. Other than that, there are some differences in the software. We won't go into that this week, but we will next week. So come back then if you want to know about that. Initially, those differences were bigger than what they are now. So when I originally got this camera back in December of last year and first used it in the beginning of the year, it was considerably different. They have just recently changed the software for the phone and for the PC, and it is considerably easier than it used to be. So it matches closer to the GoPro Max. So hope you like those, and hopefully you got some good information in helping you decide whether you want to have an Insta360 or a GoPro Max for your 360 camera, and I strongly recommend you add one if you don't have one already. So thanks for joining me here, and until next time, keep the sunny side up, keep the rubber side down, and have an utterly awesome day.